One Piece chapter 973. Now this was a solid chapter. No progression, but more so filling in the gaps of things we already know. But this chapter definitely gave us a clearer picture of how everything went down after Oden's execution, and that's something I think we've been wondering about because we were getting a few bits here and there beforehand, but we didn't exactly know how the sequence of events lined up. And I think this chapter cleared that up. And it also gave us more exposition on Kyoshiro, and as well as a person that has been speculated and theorized about ever since the beginning of this arc, and those questions are finally answered, even though I think a lot of people guessed it. But I like how everything came full circle. But let's start from the beginning. Now the chapter starts off with a brief flashback of Oden on Roger's ship, and here we get to see Oden having bonding moments with Momo and Hiyori. Now during this whole flashback, it seems like Oden knew his time was coming even before the whole Kaido ordeal, because there's several moments where he kept telling the Scabbers that if something were to happen, that they should go to Zou for help, and that Zou and the Kozuki clan have a history that dates back a very long time, which is information we already know. And obviously this most likely ties back to the Void Century, and also connections as to why Momo has the power to control Zunisha. It also brings up the question as to why Zunisha was, given this punishment to walk for an eternity. The only people that could have gave her that command were people who would have the same power as Momo. So could it have been someone from the Kozuki clan that gave her that command? And perhaps this was a way to keep the Ming tribe a secret from the world, and a way for people not to find out about its whereabouts, because Zou is always moving, and it also has one of the road poneglyphs. But it also did say that Zunisha committed a crime. Now what that crime is, we're not sure, but I'm definitely looking forward to this and the Kozuki's connection to the Void Century and possibly the Great Kingdom, because it seems like the Kozuki clan is tied to the whole idea of the dawn of the world. Now we also get a glimpse or the beginning as to why Neko and Inurashi's relationship became the way it is, and obviously it was because of Oden's death. And I think it was more so how Neko was acting during Oden's execution, Oden's last moments, whereas Inu feels like because of what Neko said, it's almost like he was responsible for Oden's death. And ever since then, that seemed to have created a crack in their relationship, something that's still present to the current timeline 20 years in the future, even though they were introduced as being very friendly in the beginning of this flashback, which is surprising because they are both cats and dogs. So maybe that's the way their relationship is meant to be. Now as the Scabbards were making their way into the castle, we get to see some of the numbers here. Now obviously these guys are silhouettes because Oda has plans for their reveal during the actual war against Kaido, but we also get the reason as to why only some of the Scabbards went into the future and not all of them, and that was because Denjiro, Shirodoji, and of course Inu and Neko were holding off the enemies and were unable to reach the castle before Toki transported the other Scabbards into the future. And if you guys remembered, Denjiro and Shirodoji fought Kaido at some point, so it was probably around this time that it happened. Now surprisingly, Kaido made it to the castle before anyone, and that makes sense because he can fly in his dragon form. And this is the part where he had a conversation with Momo, and this was something that Oda showed bits here and there in the current timeline, and a lot of people were wondering when Momo talked to Kaido, because if that happened, Kaido most likely spared Momo's life. And here we get to see that Kaido was on the verge of killing Momo, but again I feel like this probably goes back to Kaido's conversation with Oden in the last few chapters and how he feels about Oden and him having some sort of respect there, and I think that's what eventually stops him from killing Momo. Now even though he said that Momo should burn in the castle, I think at this point he didn't really care if they survived or died. I think there was a lot of conflict going on for Kaido here, again, which might be a character moment for Kaido because we don't really know much about Kaido in the first place. But again, I'm kind of looking forward to things like that with the Yonkos. Kinemon and the others make it to the castle, and she tells Toki tells them something, and obviously that's her telling them about sending them into the future to complete the plan, and really that Toki didn't transport Hiyori into the future to ensure that the Kozuki bloodline would still live in case things didn't go as planned. And this is where we get to see Hiyori getting saved by Kamawatsu. Now Toki herself left the castle and headed towards Bakura town, and this is where she gave the prophetic speech about how the 9 Scabbards will come for Orochi in 20 years time, and how that will bring about a new dawn. And that's how the myth started to spread over time, a period of time, to the point that it eventually reached Orochi's ears. And this was sort of the beginning of Orochi's fears because they could never find the bodies of the Kozuki clan. And I think one of the reasons why Orochi is so scared, because again there's something that was reiterated in one of the previous chapters about how dangerous a person can be if they're out for revenge. And I think Orochi, he knows that if their goal is revenge, they will eventually catch up to him. So I think that's what Orochi is really scared of, because he himself has had that ambition of, you know, going through revenge himself. Now we also get the reason as to why Toki was going through time, and that was because she was hoping that someone would accomplish the idea of the dawn of the world. And this is very interesting because it seems like she played a role in all of this as well, because she mentioned that perhaps the reason for her going through time may have not been to escape, but more so to meet Odin. Again, I'm getting a lot of prophecy vibes here, because it seems like things were already, you know, set in stone that this was going to happen, and she going into the future was also a part of that, you know, prophecy. So that's very interesting. Now we then move on to Denjiro, and a lot of this comes full circle, but it turns out that Denjiro is Kyoshiro, which is something that I think was very obvious from the beginning, but I did have little doubts here and there that it could be someone else. But I think the general consensus in the community was that Denjiro was Kyoshiro. There was just overwhelming evidence for that, and here we get to see the role he played and how he became the person that he is today, working as Orochi's bodyguard, obviously holding, you know, negative sentiments towards him, and as well as his role into making Hiyori take on the mantle of Komurosaki. And it was also revealed that he was also the witch in our boy. Now this is something that I didn't think would be Kyoshiro, so this was kind of a surprise for me. So I think for the most part this chapter has cleared up most of the reveals that we were waiting for, you know, Denjiro, Kyoshiro, and the witch in our boy all in one go. So this was, the pacing was pretty good. I would say the pacing of the chapter is pretty good, but overall in terms of progression, I think for the most part we already knew most of the stuff that happened in this chapter. But again, I don't know if when we're going to go back in the present timeline, because I feel like this flashback should be over by now, because we got everything out of this flashback. So maybe in the next chapter we go back to the present to the current timeline, because in the last chapter that was what was said in the ending, right? But overall this was I would say this was a very solid chapter. A lot of exposition, a lot of things have been cleared up, theories, speculation. So I'm definitely looking forward to what's gonna happen next. But again, just my quick thoughts on the chapter. Comment down below what you guys think. Like the video if you liked it, and subscribe for more One Piece content. It is Pharaoh, and I will see you folks later. Peace.